two wheels this week. Jeff rides Ducati's ST4. Wayne gets the boot in Yorkshire. And if you're looking for somewhere different to go on your machine, I look back at my holiday in Andorra.
Sports tourers. What's that supposed to mean? A soft option race rep or a sporty tourer? You can tour on a Blade or a Bandit, but there are some bikes that I've tested, like Honda's VFR, Triumph's new Sprint ST and the Ducati ST2 that are made for the job. So why revisit Ducati? It's because this is the 916 in touring mode, the Sport Turismo ST4. Sport touring is what the badge says, and believe me, with a full, unadulterated 916 Desmo motor, the performance is definitely biased towards the sports end of touring. But with a neat bit of black box tuning, different throttle bodies and a slightly heavier flywheel, it's become more tractable and smoother too. And talking of smoothness, I think that's where it's going to appeal to a lot of people, because this bike oozes style from this super smooth fairing, nice sculpted tank, big shapely seat, and even the grab rail at the back has got that Italian style. But you might say that's all very well, but what's underneath? That big Desmo 90-degree V-twin for a start off, with all its world superbike heritage. And then the frame itself, it's derived from the 888. Trademark Ducati lattice pattern, as you can see, very nicely finished off, very neat welds. Coming through here, the rear suspension, single monoshock there, and as you see, it hasn't got a single-sided swing arm, unlike the 916. This again is more conventional. But one good thing, the rear suspension is fully adjustable for preload as well as for rebound damping. And up front here, we've got the ubiquitous Brembo calipers, 320mm discs, and Shower upside down forks, all very racy kit. And just like the rear suspension, these are adjustable for preload, compression damping and rebound damping. Very, very sophisticated kit. And that sophistication shows. Out on the road, the Duke is an absolute cracker. The 104 brake is more than you get from the Honda or the Sprint, and boy does it make itself known. It growls and grunts as it punches out those horses, and that distinctive Ducati exhaust bark lets you know it. It's not noisy, just Italian. Very, very vocal. Funnily enough, it's a few kilos heavier than the others, but its distribution is such that you don't notice it. Road holding is taut but forgiving, and combined with fluid handling, this bike gives you the feeling that it would do well on the track. A sort of Carl Fogarty in a suit. And talking of suits, they say clothes maketh the man. So not only have you got this nice smooth fairing, the actual screen blade here, if you want a taller one you can, for another 63 quid. If you're extremely tall, I like it the way it is. Come around to the cockpit here. Very neat display, a couple of analog instruments there, but you've also got a digital display. You might just have heard the old electric fuel pump wind up there. You've got these bars here which give you your fuel tank level. That low at the moment is low temperature because we've been switched off for a little while. Then up in the top right, you've got the clock there ticking away. Up above here you've got your old neutral indicator and a fuel warning light and lights and all the rest of it. Little red ignition one, no problems there. Looking at the levers, unusually for a touring bike like this, the levers are non-adjustable. It's not a problem for me because I've got big mitts, but it might be a problem for some people. Looking up to the mirrors here, these are really neat. Not only do you get a nice view, but they also fold back and forwards, and the mirrors themselves are adjustable within here, so you can just rock that backwards and forwards just like a car. And something else which is like modern cars, they've also got a separate piece on the very edge here to give you a wider view, which is very useful if someone dares to overtake you. But all these little neat touches, including this headstock here, which is very, very nicely finished. Take the old key out and move to the seat at the back here, the seat comes off, and very quickly as well, unlike some bikes I could mention. Lift the old seat up here, look at that, a nice red Ducati pouch there with your tools in there. You can see the rear suspension down here, and up here is the remote reservoir, and that's where you can adjust your preload. It's very, very neat. A little hinge there on the back of the petrol tank is so you can hinge the tank up for servicing and get into the air cleaner. Nice, isn't it? The riding position is slightly pitched forward, all the better for nudging 150 miles an hour on your leisurely tour. In the twisty bits, the 6-speed gearbox is a perler. Crisp and light, it makes playing exhaust tunes a pleasure. But if you do get carried away, the brakes will soon slow you down. But it really should have those adjustable levers. So what else have we got? Prop stand down there. Now this is characteristic Ducati. As you pick the bike up, it flicks back. All very neat, you can think, but just watch it if you're parking it on a slope. It can catch you unawares and prove very, very expensive. But not only that, 10 out of 10 to Ducati, it's got a centre stand, like all bikes should have. Very sensible. And look at this for neatness. A little grab lever there, complete with a rubber cover. Just to heave on that, and you're up. No probs. Touring bikes. Presuming you're going to take a pillion passenger, you need decent pillion rests. Look at these, not only do they fold out nice and positively, if I pretend I've got a ghost rider on here and swing my leg over, sit on the back, and you end up that your legs aren't too badly cramped up at the back. I don't like riding pillion anyway, but there we are. It does demonstrate that it is a practical two-up bike. And talking about two-up bike, when you are doing your touring, this one does come with fully detachable, ergonomically designed panniers, colour-coded as well. They fit on the side. They're going to cost you 475 quid extra, but at least the bike was designed to have them. Which is just as well, because it's short of bungee points. But that's about all it's short of. It's a Ducati, but not as you know it. It'll cost you £9,000 on the road, and it's got a 2-year unlimited mileage guarantee. But is it better than the proven VFR or superb Triumph Sprint? Let me ask you something. Do you prefer sushi, roast beef or pasta? It's that sort of choice. The ST4 is more of a rival than the ST2 was, but V4, triple or V-twin? That is the question. I'm a vegetarian, so I should go for the pasta. Sorry, I mean Ducati. Then again, that triple was really nice. But if I remember right, the VFR, what a great all-rounder that was.
Have you ever wondered how a motorcycle boot is made? Probably not, but Wayne and I recently took a trip to Mike Sheen Altberg Factory in deepest Yorkshire, which with its workforce of just 12 people is one of only a handful of places still making boots in the traditional way.
Right, enough of the history lesson, Paul. We're not interested, are we? No, we're interested in the real thing. We're actually here to find out how that lot of paper that are all cut up in different shapes, which produces that stitched up bits of leather, can end up looking like that, a motorcycle boot. Well, we're in just the right place for it, because below me is the factory floor. So, Paul, it's over to you.
Well, that was the worst ever Lloyd Grossman impression I've ever heard. But this is really where the process starts. This is where the leather and the lining is cut out to start making the boot. There's a piece of leather cut out. That would be the front section of a boot down your shin, and that wraps around there for fastening. You get the idea. Now these are cut out with knives. Not little knives like that, not knives as we know them. Knives like this. This is a knife for cutting out leather. Rather like you would use in a kitchen for cutting out pastry. Not that I know anything about that. But that's got a blade on the edge there, and it's double-sided. So it goes down left and right-sided, left and right boots. That goes on the leather or on the liner underneath these huge machines which come down with a force of about 30 tons and stamp it out perfectly.
So once the pieces have been cut out into their appropriate shape, and before they're stitched together, we come to this device called a skiver. That's why Paul sent me over here to do this, because he reckons I skive a little. Well, a lot actually. Now, instead of using the traditional method of a knife, which trims the edge of these pieces of leather, making them slim, they use this fancy machine. But they won't let me use that. They shouldn't let me have a knife, to be honest with you. They thin the edges of each piece of leather so they lie neatly together before they stitch it. So it's not double thick, because if it was double thick, of course, it would be ugly and it would be very uncomfortable to wear.
Equally as important as the leather in a boot is the inside bit, the bit that actually touches your foot, the inner liner. so you don't want any lumps or big things sticking in your feet as you're riding along. So we use a technique which gives a flat seam. That's perfectly flat there, very, very comfortable to wear. And this is a Camberell inner liner. Now that's not the stuff that you put in your tea or coffee, totally different. Don't put this in your tea or coffee, make a right mess. And that's sandwiched together with a Pirell waterproof and breathable liner, which gives you your waterproofancy. All your seams are taped up and it's all very, very clever. And it's all done on these very fancy machines back here.
So once this little inner sock has been produced, with the Camberell and the Pirell and so on, we've then got to find somewhere to stick it. Now we don't need your answers on a postcard, thank you, we do know. It then goes into a leather outer. Now the leather outer of course has to be stitched together, so what we then do is mark it by use of a stencil, and we have to go all around all the various different positions and markings. To be honest with you, I couldn't do that all day, I'd find that soul destroying. Okay, alright, point taken. So we've got the inner liner to go inside the leather boot, that's got to be stitched together, and that's what these ladies are doing here.
Once the stitching is completed, we're on to the next process, which is to fit the midsole. That's the bit that stops your foot from falling out of the bottom of the boot, and this gives the boot its stiffness. This machine is called a lasting machine. Now, in normal shoe manufacture, the toe is lasted first, but on these motorcycle boots, they start with the heel, because they say that this is the most important part. This machine uses both heat and some very clever clamping arrangements, and now the boot really starts to take shape.
So that's a fairly fancy process, isn't it, eh? To end up with this. But this boot ain't got no sole. But I've got the sole, because that sole there has got to end up on that boot there, and this fella over here, Paul, can do just that, so follow me. There you go, Paul, do your thing, man.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed your little guided tour around the Altberg boot factory. There's an awful lot goes into making a pair of these. A lot more than we've actually shown you. They turn out about 150 pairs of boots a week here, and there's only 12 staff, so we reckon that's about 3 hours for a pair of boots, and we've just showed you there in a few minutes. We've missed out an awful lot, believe me. In fact, there's a guy sits in the corner who does nothing but refurbish boots. He re-waterproofs them and put new soles on them and all sorts. Even when you've had them for ages, you can have them re-soled and everything. Look at this pair. This guy's had these a long time and lost an awful lot of weight since he bought them, believe me. But it has been very interesting, and perhaps giving you a bit of food for thought next time you go into your bike shop looking for some nice new boots. I've learnt an awful lot today, and believe it or not, Wayne has actually learned something today, which is quite remarkable.
You're
really.
so right, I've learnt an awful lot today.
You've enjoyed yourself, haven't you?
Thoroughly, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been beautiful.
Beautiful, eh?
Sorry.
Well, I know you've had a good time actually, because as you've been walking around, you seem to have had your tongue hanging out.
I don't believe it. In fact, I tell you what, when you said we're coming up to North Yorkshire and you sent me off in another car,
yeah.
I honestly thought you'd stitch me up.
Did you think I'd sold you down the river?
Oh no, I've had enough of this, I can't handle anymore.
Just before you go.
Yes.
Well, they're a pair of skis and it's the middle of summer, so...
Say you're in North Yorkshire, mate. Oh, the weather could take a turn for the worst.
It could, yeah. Just one other point I've got to ask you.
What now?
What's these in your pocket?
Arseholes.
I only have arse. Oh, do you mean our souls?
Hi, see ya.
Oh, right.
Ta-da.
And after the break, I go trail riding in Andorra.
So welcome to El Prat. That's not me, that's this place, Barcelona Airport in Spain. Now, I'm travelling very light, as you can see, because the bike I'm going to be riding is 3 hours or so that way in the Andorran mountains. So I can't speak the lingo. It's going to be very, very interesting.
In just 3 hours, I arrived in Andorra, which is a small principality sandwiched between France and Spain and nestled high in the Pyrenees mountain range. It's known as a winter ski resort and a tax-free haven, but in the last 3 years has introduced some more extreme sports.
Well, that was an interesting trip, but it's going to get much, much better than that, because if you haven't guessed yet, I'm going trail riding in Andorra.
With just enough time to unpack my bags, it was down to Moto Adventures to get kitted out. They supply all the basic protective gear. This gear is actually far from basic. All the best you can get. Full body protection, knee, elbow and everything protection. And a survival blanket, which did concern me just a little.
Okay, I've told all of you guys all the do's and don'ts, okay? Main thing is set your own pace, okay? It's not a motocross track. There are other road users up there and big drop-offs, okay, so just take care, that's the main thing.
Well, that's the briefing, sign the disclaimer and we're off.
Well, that's it. There is no turning back.
The bikes we were to use were all Honda XR250 and 400s, and with no electric starts, our first task was to actually try and get them going. A bump start in second gear usually does the trick. The first section of the journey takes you through the built-up Andorra de Vella. But once you pass these busy streets and the Spanish border, it's straight up into the mountains. After a night of rain, we were to encounter just about every type of terrain you could imagine. Everything from sharp rocks and rubble to deep water and some of the deepest mud ruts that I have ever seen.
Two hours and what, 50k? Look at the state of it. Oh, best drink of the day, that. Without a doubt.
Now, Robert, you won't mind me saying you appeared the most nervous this morning, is that right?
That is exactly right. I mean, I got on that bike this morning, you all rode off, and I thought, what have I got myself into here? I thought, actually for the first half an hour I thought, right, let them go off in the distance and I'll double back and go back. I was really, really scared actually. I mean, some of those corners, some of those mud things, you know, I just thought you're all bloody bonkers.
Yeah, well, we are, and you're with us, so you're just as bad. Robert wasn't the only one finding the pace a little bit tough. I think we'd all agree. This was certainly a little bit harder than we had at first anticipated. There's certainly no room for error on these tricky mountain passes. And here's John, the mechanic at the back, making it all look ridiculously easy. And eventually it was the bit that I'd waited 70 kilometres and 5 hours for, my dinner. So we've done half a day now, half a day's riding through brilliant countryside, about 70k we've done through some pretty, I thought, pretty hairy bits and pieces, and apparently we're in Spain now, not Andorra. I don't know where the flipping heck we are. See how these guys are going on. Steve, what do you think?
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a bit muddy and a bit slippy in places and a bit wet, but it's been great.
And have you fell off?
Yeah.
Good, so have I. Everyone's fell off. Right, Mark, how are you going on?
Fantastic. It's a challenging experience, I think, to actually learn to ride the bikes properly, but it's just a whole load of fun, though.
Right, have you done much off-roading before?
Absolutely none at all.
Right.
No, mostly just road riding. It's totally different to that, but it's, as I say, it only takes an hour or so, you get well into it.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Love it, brilliant. Right, I presume I'm going to get the same answer here, am I?
Definitely, yeah, like being a kid again.
Is it?
Smart, yeah.
Yeah. Is it harder than you thought?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. You just have to forget everything you know about like road riding and just learn again.
It's bloody harder than I thought. I tell you,
the ground's hard, isn't it?
This ground is hard. I know about that. Yeah. Actually, I think dinner's actually ready now. But I'm going to ask these guys, and I want them to guys.
What does that?
Come get in. Well fed, very well watered, only another 70k to go. I can't wait. So there are the beautiful Pyrenees surrounding Andorra. Tomorrow, I believe, we're going right up there, up at the top. I'm not so sure about that. Is it worth it, I ask you? Well, where else in the world can you get a view like that? I'm just a bit concerned about this next section. It's a jump section. I think I might just sit this one out. On Two Wheels next week, Jeff and I spend the day comparing a couple of birds. Honda's well-established Blackbird and Suzuki's new world beater, the Hayabusa. And there'll be more from Andorra.